Never let your wife name your sons. Let me explain. I'm going to read a little bit of a post here that popped up, and I've seen a version of this many times before. This is just a recent example. The title reads, "My wife named our son after her first love, and I had no idea." He says it's a throwaway account. He's obviously trying to protect himself. "My son is 5, and about 2 days ago, we were out shopping and ran into a high school friend of hers. She was catching up, and when she told her friend that we had a son, when the old friend asked the name, my wife hesitated, and I told her. She had a strange look on her face and then said, 'You mean like your ex-boyfriend?' Our son's name is very unique, and to the point that I've never met another person with the same name. Now she refuses to talk to me about it. I feel betrayed and disgusted with her. It's like a switch was flipped in my mind, and I just can't look at her the same way." All right, let's get on the road and have a conversation about alpha widows and why you never want to let your wife name your son. I realize there's going to be some pushback on it because there's a lot of egalitarian thoughts between couples these days. We're equals. We should make these decisions together. We need to sit down and have a conversation, hash out the name and agree on it, sort of thing. But I think it's really important that guys understand this notion of alpha widows and why women do this. A lot of the times when women get into a marriage or they have a child with a guy, they're not always getting their first choice. I'm going to say that again. They're not always getting their first pick. Their first pick was often a guy from her past that she had pined for, that she was unsuccessful in locking down. She may have wanted to marry him, she may have wanted to have his children, but due to circumstances at that time, or maybe just the way that she was in his eyes, he chose to pass on it and move on, and she never forgot about that guy. He's often, I'm going to put this in quotations, the best she ever had. Personally, sexually, emotionally, all of these things inherently sort of collect in one area, and she's got a place in her head and her heart for this guy and never seems to forget him. So, if you're a guy that's having a child and you know it's a son and you start talking about names and she starts insisting on choosing a name, understand that she might be an alpha widow and insisting on a name of a guy from her past. She's not going to overtly state it to you. She's not going to tell you, "Oh, by the way, I dated this guy 11 years ago or 3.5 years ago, and I wanted him to commit to me, but he just wouldn't do it. But I really liked his name, so we're going to name our son after Bill." An alpha widow is out there. There's a lot of them out there. In fact, the vast majority of women that you're going to come across in their 30s or 40s had their best earlier in their youth, pined for the guy, were unable to lock him down. It might be one of her early heartbreaks, one of the guys that she's never really forgotten about, never really loses emotional connection about. If a woman holds a place in her heart or her mind for another guy to the extent that you're aware of it, you really shouldn't choose to have kids with a chick like that. It's in situations like that that I've noticed in my personal coaching practice with these high net worth individuals, where women will marry up a very successful entrepreneur, have his kids, and then later on down the road, when she gets bored of him or she's no longer intrigued by the relationship, she goes looking for either guys from her past or to pastures which she might deem to be greener. And the truth of the matter is, pastures are always greener where you water and fertilize the grass, where you're standing, not where you're going to. So you got to be really careful, guys, when dealing with an alpha widow. Learn how to identify them and make sure that you insist as a father, if there is a son inbound coming, that you are the one that names him. He is your son. He has your DNA. I presume that you're verifying that with a paternity test if you're wise. He has your DNA and your name. Make sure you name your son.